1, 2, 3, 4.
And we're going to see if I can get it right this time. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Lay It on the Table, the Southern Board Game Podcast with the accent on Southern. I nailed it that time. I nailed it. I am your host, one of your hosts, Joe Mahaffey. I am here as always with my partner in crime.
I'm James Englehart. Down here, I'm so happy for you, Joe. We got you nailed it one time through.
It'll break the next time. So I gotta say, before I introduce our mystery guest, I gotta think this is probably going to be one of the most important broadcasts of our podcast because of just what's going on in the world of board gaming. And I'm so delighted to have back to the podcast Christina Stiles, publisher of Christina Stiles Presents. We had her back on the program back in the fall. And with all that's been going on with Wizards of the Coast and the controversy over the open gaming license stuff, we're players. We're not publishers. Mm-hmm. And so when we hear about these things, we can get mad about it as a community. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really change the way we have access to content per se, or how we play the game. But it does have impact on the creators that create the content that we would like to play. And so I thought it would be useful for Christina to come back and just sort of give us her perspective on these changes in the OGL, what she thinks it means for her of content that she has, and also give us a sense of what her plans are going forward. So welcome back to the program, Christina.
All right. Thank you, guys. Thank you for inviting me, guys. Yeah, so where do you want me to start on this? This is like the biggest drop of crap that came down on us.
Hey, now this is a family show. We don't say crap on this.
We can say crap, can't we? That was the nice version of it, Joe.
Yeah, so we occasionally we'll even say shit. It's okay. So, it's interesting because at the beginning of this year really started with the leaks, and there have been a number of leaks with the OGLs, and I have some theories on that we talked about last time.
Leaks, crap. It's just like, I've got a toddler. I get it.
We have somebody's got to get a plumber on this really fast. So I think where I'd like to really start is, the OGL 1.0A, which is from what I understand, and I'm not a lawyer and I'm not an expert on this, but 1.0A is the license that harkens back to 2000, but includes the 5e SRD as a part of the license. Is that correct from your perspective?
That is absolutely correct. So you can add different SRDs into the license. So things like, say Mutants and Masterminds and stuff like that, you can have access to their materials through that particular OGL.
Right.
So other people are allowed to use it for other reasons. So it's, it's created by D&D and it has followings in various games that are created that are similar to D&D.
And from what I understand, a lot of publishers will just go ahead and include it by default. So in case they accidentally trudge on that particular area that they got themselves covered, which at the time seemed like a pretty good insurance policy, but now may put some of their content into some risk.
If we understand them correctly, and they're not lying to us, right now they're saying from the 1.2 draft that I've read, they're saying that they're not going to touch anything that's already out there.
Right.
All right. So that was a big concern, obviously.
It was.
But there's the other concern is we've got things in the pipeline already, and other people's Starship games were built on the SRD of the 3.x, we'll call it 3.x, that came out. So, we had this understanding that this was going to be out there and available to us for forever and ever and ever. So, things like Mutants and Masterminds was built on it. Pathfinder, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I'm assuming Dungeon Crawl Classics is. I didn't actually go back and look at the book before I made my statement, but I would think so.
Well,
So I mean, dude, this affects a lot of people and a lot of things that other people enjoy.
And for the benefits of our listeners, there's been a bit of an evolution. So there was 1.0. There was 1.1 that was leaked that was very controversial because it was very punitive for everybody in the community.
Oh, my God.
They've since backtracked and come back with 1.2. And just some of the key features of 1.2 that I'll point out is that they're putting the mechanics of the game into Creative Commons, which is a very well-known, protected environment, which of course is, from my perspective, unnecessary, just because the Supreme Court has already ruled that you
Exactly. I
cannot
was going to say that.
patent game mechanics anyway. So it's like,
Right.
the way
So it's like here, they
Right.
think we're giving you a freebie, but they're
Yeah.
really not, because you can't copyright this.
But what they can say, is like if Wizards of the Coast came up with the concept of an owl bear, that's their property.
Right.
And
And that's
you
why the
cannot
SRD
use
is
their
important.
art.
Yeah. You definitely can't use their art.
Right.
But yeah, so concepts that, we find in everybody's game, so to speak, now, that they're not mythological monsters, say, that they are in the D&D books, and we're all familiar with them. And, these third-party companies that have popped up, especially, let's say, OSR stuff. They're looking at owlbear, and they've got a version of owlbear in their game, and
Sure.
so on and so on. So, I mean, it affects everybody that, this is not only the game rules, but the fact that we are expecting owlbears or whatever to be open forever.
Well, the other challenge that I've noticed in this is that there's been a lot of YouTubers and a lot of content creators that have really been using this as clickbait to boost their channels. And unfortunately, that's amplified a lot of the sky is falling messaging, as well as creating a level of misinformation. And there's very few people that have worked really hard to draw that back into the center. I think D&D Shorts has done a really nice job of correcting things that he's gotten wrong. I think Dungeon Craft, Professor Dungeon Master, he's done a really good job taking a wait and see attitude, but also paying attention to those kinds of things. DM Dave, who's not on YouTube, but I follow him on other mediums, has taken a similar kind of approach. And I'm finding, so what I'm trying to get at here is that there's some adults in the room that actually make a living off of this license, that are looking at things very seriously, not so much from a sky is falling perspective. And I'm just kind of curious from your point of view, Christina, how has it been impacting you and the content that you have provided and that you're working on? What have you been struggling with the last couple of weeks?
So I've got some things that are in the pipeline that I owe people, that I'm in the editing stages of, and I'm trying to get through layout and everything. And their particular timeline, as they started it, and saying, "Oh, we're going to drop this on the 14th, and then we're deauthorizing everything." And I'm like, "Wait a minute! I got to get these things out." So that scared the living daylights out of me. The fact that things are being extended a little bit longer because they're still talking about that deauthorization piece, that's what is making me angry. I don't care what they do with 6 or 5 or whatever. I don't care about those. I don't create for 5, and I'm not planning on creating for 1D&D. I am a 3X publisher, so that's all I'm interested in, and I love the things that are created off of that SRD. So yeah, I've got things in the pipeline I'm really concerned about. Am I going to be able to get them out in time? So I'm like, trying to get this done as quickly as possible. And I'm like, please hold off, please hold off.
It's funny you mentioned that, because I backed a Kickstarter with DM Dave on it's a Game Master Guide for 5e, a book that he's writing, a very comprehensive hardback book. And he actually published a PDF alpha of it to basically get that out under the license, so that now that he does his revisions, he's already gotten it out under the license to protect himself. It was really an interesting move.
I might have to do that. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I mentioned it.
Yes, that is a good idea. I don't have a good layout version, but at least I could put just send the Word document into a PDF and get it to this was Kickstarter stuff that backers could look at.
I guess it's the equivalent of the old days of writing a song and then mailing it to yourself, so it's postmarked, so you can show.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But I also think, you're going back to the comment about the adults in the room. It feels like WotC themselves kind of had an adult walk into the room and saying, "What was that thing that got leaked? We really have to pull that back."
Yes.
And it was interesting because I was thinking about our conversation last time, Joe, that I said, well, I wonder if they're going to kind of, they were doing this to be a sort of crowdsourced and co-op thing. And it turns out from the stuff that I was reading from WotC, they just punted on that, but are now turning it into a crowdsourcing campaign. And
I think they're trying to save face. That's how that is, saving face.
I hate,
but
that's a smarter way to go.
I hate to be cynical. I think the adults in the room were the following people: The Street, CNBC, and Fortune, because those are the 3 mainstream publications that picked up on this and started alerting the shareholders
Oh, yeah,
to
yeah.
what's going on.
Good
Because
point.
I own,
Yeah.
so truth be told, I own some Hasbro stock. I have not sold it.
Okay.
I do have a stop limit on it in case it drops down to what I paid for it, because I don't want to lose money on these guys.
Yeah.
But as I tracked their stock, it was interesting. About a week.
And this is an interesting meta version of all of this.
About a week or so ago, before these other articles started showing up, the following article dropped on their stock channel. Hasbro named one of America's most just companies.
Okay.
Not with their Microsoft management, no.
And then the defecation hit the rotating oscillator.
Yes. Yeah, and I hate it because, I know a lot of these people that work at Wizards of the Coast as designers, and they're, they don't really want to see this happening, but they have no say in what's going on with the management level.
Well,
so they're taking a lot of crap off of this as well.
So
them.
It's interesting you bring that up, because one of the guys in the Discord channel at the game store, the friendly local game store, also known as Carolina Tabletop Games, he's actually one of my former campaign D&D players. His tag is BF Spinner. He posted the D&D. Hold on a minute here. D&D Shorts video about all of the leaks that he was able to get a hold of. And it's really interesting, the number of people that have been, certified, qualified members of the WotC staff that are talking off the record to people. And they're saying that really the problem here is a guy named Chris Cow, who was really brought in to build the Wizards of the Coast version of a true virtual tabletop. And that he wanted it to be, he wanted to kill D&D Beyond, he wanted to kill Roll20, he wanted to kill Foundry, and he was surprised allegedly when they bought D&D Beyond, and there were some that were afraid that he was just going to scuttle it, because we've seen Apple do that. We've seen Apple buy products and scuttle it. We've seen other companies buy products and scuttle them because they're taking a competitor off the field.
Right.
Yeah, that's true. I understand that aspect of it, but at the same time, if you look at the 1.2 draft that just came out, it says they're supportive of virtual tabletops. So I mean, it's like, I understood that this was your desired area where you wanted to make your stand and make all your money.
You got to read it a little closer, because they're supportive of it, but only if you're using static content. You're not allowed to make a animation of
I did see that. Yeah, there's no video game qualities to it, which that's going to irritate people. But at the same time, it's like, for me as one of the older gamers, I don't really care about the virtual tabletop area. So, but to me, it looked like the continued version of this draft is still hard hitting the most against the actual book publishers. Not the virtual tabletops, which, didn't make sense to me if that was their original version, was to make money off of all the little things you could get players to buy. Because we all know one of the problems that Dungeons and Dragons has is the game master is the person that buys all the stuff, and they're just trying to get the player to buy more stuff now. And that's cool. I'm fine with that. But, shutting everything else down just to, in a burning blaze is just crazy.
The sources say, the same article that D&D Shorts put out basically said that the sources say that D&D contributes, I believe, $150 million to the bottom line.
Wow.
And they want it to contribute $1 billion. And the only product that has hit the $1 billion mark has been Magic the Gathering.
Yeah, and that's a whole different ball game, though. I mean,
but it's transactions, exactly. 100%.
Yeah, that's a whole different market, So first of all, I wonder, just I'm not a video gamer, by the way, so I understand that people buy lots of skins or whatever things that they're buying for their video game experience, and they have a subscription and are willing to pay for that, right? I get that. But the rest of us, there's an older course gaming group, and they were like, well, we'll get on virtual tabletop, but it's not, our live and die. We'd much prefer to meet in person. And then you got the younger people who may be in college and don't have a lot of expendable, cash. So who's their market, for this? If it's younger people, then do they have the money that these people want to pull out of their pockets? I don't know.
Well, and I think about myself. So as a DM, who's been playing this through the pandemic, so we're doing Curse of Strahd. I have the book.
Yeah.
I have the digital book that I got with D&D Beyond.
Okay.
And then when I got into Roll20, I bought it again so I could
Yeah.
have all the assets in Roll20. So basically one piece of content got 3 purchases from me, different price points, but enough so that I could run the game and have entertainment with, 7 or so people. Now, in the grand scheme of things, it was cheaper than buying movie tickets.
Oh
for
yeah,
as many times as
most
we've
definitely.
played.
Yeah.
But all I see them buying D&D Beyond do is cutting one of those revenue streams, because I'm going to buy the book. I buy the books now digitally. I only buy the hard copy if there's an alternate cover, because I have a problem.
Yes, I understand that problem. Yeah.
And either this whole thing has just cratered my investment, or it's just made it significantly more valuable.
Yeah, but also too that okay, so you bought all those things. How much investment other than getting a subscription possibly to Roll20 that did your players input?
The other thing that I'm thinking though is that there was so much in that VTT licensing part that was you can't have animate. It's always like, if it's going to be static, if it's just going to look like we're getting together and there's, we've got figures on a map, that's great. We're planning to do something a little more sexy, and sure, we will do the animated fireballs, and it's going to be under our branding and you pay us for that. But if you want to go with Forge or somebody else's VTT, fine, but it can't be super cool the way we're going to do it. And that was part of what I was kind of...
Right. They are trying to cut down the coolness factor to draw you to them, which, once
But
again, I'm fine with that. Why did you have to step on all the publishers who are putting out books?
Right. And that's a whole different... Right. And so, so the 1.0A lets everybody keep their stuff. And I'm just very curious about what it's going to look like going forward for digital and print.
Yeah.
That's the thing that I'm also very...
So what I would prefer they do, and this is, a lot of the tabletop creators would prefer they keep the OGL license, do what they tried to do with 4th edition and go GSL. They had put out a different gaming license for that. And they wanted people to buy in to be able to use all their stuff. I think at the time it was like $5,000 or something. Obviously, a lot of publishers didn't sign on, and 4th didn't do as well as they expected, but here you got a different environment. If you're pushing for, you want to put everybody on to this virtual experience, and you want to make it as close to a video game like, and there was even talk of perhaps having AI game masters. I don't know. Then that's fine, but why do you have to kill the tiny publisher along the way?
Well,
do something different and limit the 1D&D whatever moving forward to be able to use its materials. You have to be in that license, but everything before that is okay.
Well, I think too, as we're coming up on, the 50th anniversary of D&D will be next year. 2024 is 50 years from when Gygax and those guys released version 1, the original one. And it seems to me the only reason that this game concept has survived as a platform, given all the drama that D&D has gone through the years, whether it's the satanic panic or the multiple sales of the company or what have you, is because people were able to use the mechanics and their imagination and build community and build friendships. I got back into D&D as it was ramping back up in 5e, and it wasn't because I saw it on Stranger Things, and it wasn't because I even discovered Critical Role. I discovered those things after I got back into D&D, and it was because I was drawn to what I remembered as a kid.
Right, the experience.
And I think that is what they're missing with this concept of the VTT and what they're doing. Plus, I don't think that what they're trying to do with the Unreal Engine and the things that they want to try to patent are going to get past Apple's lawyers with their augmented reality stuff. They're going to be, so there's a lot of, they're playing in a space that they don't understand is what I'm trying to say.
Well, I also think that they've let the genie out of the bottle and tried to cork it back in several times in the 80s and 90s as well. And it ended up with the OGL 1.0.A or whatever. And so it's been interesting. We talked about this last time too, to watch these paroxysms and thrashings about, and then trying to future-proof and or monetize it to this extraordinary degree. And I keep going back to Christina thinking, what is this going to look like 1.2 for a smaller publisher? Is it going to be, I mean, they're no longer talking about having to, pay back or buy into, and so
Right.
that was nice to watch that drop. That seemed like a
Yes.
hugely important thing.
Yeah, and it just sounded like, yes, Critical Role and well, I was going to say Paizo, but Kobold Press has led people to them, and they're making money on things, and we would like to have a share of that. But at the same time, if those companies didn't exist and do what they do, they wouldn't have all the customers coming to D&D to begin with. So it's that, here's the people who are pushing towards your product, and now you're cutting them off at the knees, and they've already pretty much decided they're going their own way anyway at this point because they don't trust them. There's nothing to stop them in the future and just, from pulling the rug out from under them, going forward. So they're, Kobold says, hey, we're doing Project Black Flag, Paizo is looking into, whether Pathfinder 2 can meet the standards of not really pulling from their material. And then everybody's, looking at a new license called Orc.
Right.
So
I've seen
Orc,
I've seen
because
Cool,
they have to have their concern about their own companies. If this is not stable, because that's why when 4th edition hit, everybody looked, well, we don't have control over this, and you can up and decide, you can cut us off and whatever. So yeah, we're going our own way, and that's how Pathfinder was born. And it really had the market share for the longest time while D&D was floundering with the 4th edition. And of course, when 5th hit, it took its market back. But companies like Kobold Press have been pushing them along the way, and this is great material because that their own material output is not very frequent. They need these people. They need these people.
Even Critical Role was playing Pathfinder when they started their first
campaign. Yeah.
And
I'm a big Pathfinder 1 fan, so I haven't really played a lot of 2, but 5 I got in the mix because the people that I was playing with were playing it.
Right.
So I just kind of had to fall in line, but I haven't felt the urge to actually publish anything in 5th edition. It doesn't call to me in that way.
So I got into a discussion on the Discord channel today with I want to say his name is Yahweh Tag, YAWETAG, in the Discord, and he was talking about a D&D Shorts tweet that it said, one day you cross the street without looking, jaywalking, and you've committed illegal conduct. Therefore, your license is revoked. Because that's one of the things I want to get into in this.
Yes, the morality.
So there's two things in the warranties and disclaimers. Number one, you will not violate the law in any way relating to this license or your licensed work.
Yeah.
Okay. And then no hateful content or conduct. You will not include content in your licensed work that is harmful, discriminatory, illegal, obscene, or harassing, or engage in conduct that is harmful, discriminatory, illegal, obscene, or harassing. We, Wizards of the Coast, have the sole right to decide what conduct or content is hateful.
And therefore, I will never, ever sign this draft.
And see, that's the thing. They need to put specific clarity around that.
Yeah, but they're even looking at people's behavior, not just what they published.
Well, that's the cancel culture that we live in.
It is, and I'm not for a cancel culture. And plus I produce some very unexpurgated materials.
That's why we love your work. We love the X-rated Christina Styles presents.
So yeah, I cannot sign on to these things. I was looking at, I was interested in Level Up when they did their material, and then I looked out there. There's no depictions of sex allowed in this. I'm like, well, you lost me.
Yeah. So that's, I think there's some things that they're ironing out. So I'm curious. So I've signed up for the survey. I'm going to take the survey and I'm going to give the feedback. But the question is, will they really listen to it? I
don't think so, but I think like I said, I think they could have fulfilled their mission and kept publishers at the same time and just kind of use them as feeders into their tabletop, VTT stuff.
So I want to go back to something else that they wrote in when they launched this. This is something I'm curious. I'd like for both of you to comment, because for just a reminder to everybody. I mean, obviously Christine is a publisher in the D&D space or in the tabletop role-playing table space. James has also been a publisher of just works in general. Yes. So I think this is a very good thing. But from a comment perspective, but they talk about why they have to deauthorize the 1.0a. We know this is a very big concern, or a big concern. The Creative Commons license and the open terms of 1.2 are intended to help with that. But one reason we have to deauthorize, we can't use protective options in 1.2 if someone can just choose to publish harmful, discriminatory, or illegal content under 1.0a.
Yeah, but who gets to decide what is discriminatory and hateful? If
Well,
you put 50 people in a room, you're going to get 50 different ideas of what meets that criteria.
But we're back in the same argument, because here's the thing. I mean, what have we learned in the last 5 years? If I were to publish some content with homophobic drows, okay, the community would drive me out of the business.
Yes.
I don't need a license to tell me that's a bad idea.
Oh, I think you really overestimate the community.
I think you would get a different community to start following you at the same time. But yeah.
They're people who march in Charlottesville, man.
All right.
Yeah. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
No, you would not.
No, but I mean,
a group of people, and I think they're trying to say, hey, yeah, we've been working so hard to respond to the rising I mean, if you've looked at any of the materials from the D&D, AD&D, like they've got naked women in there in, bondage situations.
Right.
And you know who doesn't want that? 13-year-old girls who want to play D&D, right? They take one look at that, or the parents take one look at that and like, yeah, no, that's not good.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so this is, I think, the kind of thing we're like, you know what? We've heard this, and who knows? You're right. Who knows what?
But didn't they just get some backlash from their own customers about Spelljammer stuff?
Yeah,
that was found offensive.
I don't know how that's going to play out, but still, right? That's a thing to say. Yeah, look, no, we're not.
But the market is the best decider of what gets purchased.
Because it hasn't had a really good history of doing that.
Well,
I think it is in this case, but I mean, for me, it's like, I've got, like I said, adult materials out there. Right, no, but if I know who my market is, I'm not going to put that kind of material in a general public publication.
And that stuff is important too. I think following, this letting D&D and RPGs explore the whole range of human experience.
Yeah, but in terms of putting bondage art in RPGs, and it's always the sexy, buxom women. As someone who pushed for women in gaming for pretty much as long as I've been in gaming. Yes, that's always been an issue, and and that has changed pretty much. I mean, there's not a lot of that going on,
and I think they're trying to say let's not regress.
Well, I understand that, but at the same time, I don't like this idea that somebody gets to be the arbiter of that.
So here's the question though. So I know I did the absurd thing on purpose, and I was glad that I got the provocative response that I got.
Yeah.
Please do not send me hate mail over homophobic drows, please.
It's
but
Joe.Mahaffey.
But the question is, does the dissolution or the revocation of 1.0a truly solve that for them? Is that a necessary step, is my question?
No, it'll appear in other games that, pretty much what's going to happen right now and is happening, like Castles and Crusades. I'm a big fan of Castles and Crusades and worked with them with Troll Lord Games for a while. They're just saying, hey, we're scrubbing our stuff. We're getting all the SRD, implications that, point back to Dungeons and Dragons, and we're going our own way. So that's what's going to happen. And if they were into producing whatever material they like to produce, then they could still continue to put that kind of stuff in their material. Right. So what I suggest is don't put anything in the license that has to do with, morality. I'm thinking the orc people, I'm hoping they're listening to the people responding to them and saying that's not where that belongs. Now, if so orc will open up to allow people to put their SRDs into the system, and I'll point back to Pathfinder 1 as my example. So I'm the publisher of the Book of Passion, which was the newer version of erotic fantasy. You can find it at Misfit Studios, so if anybody wants to buy it. Well, yeah. So I
Coupon
could
code
not go-
below. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. So I couldn't claim compatibility with Pathfinder. So
Right.
that's their own separate license, a compatibility license. And they can say what people can put in their game to claim compatibility. But at the same time, their SRD was wide open. So all I had to say was, this is, 3.75 was the logo that I put on my game. And people understood that's Pathfinder 1, and I didn't claim any compatibility to them whatsoever, but I had access to all the stuff of theirs that was in the SRD, and I could publish what I wanted.
Well,
And I think that's what people should do, is the compatibility licenses.
Well, it becomes a different type of slippery slope, because I'm gonna go back to a technology example. So we look at how Apple and Google and Facebook all have to operate differently in certain countries, like China, for example, because of local laws.
Gotcha.
If you want access to our market, you got to play by our rules. So now think of being a person in a country, I don't know, somewhere in the Middle East, that is perhaps a bit more conservative with their mores, and they want access to that market. And there's content. How do they arbitrate that content on a global scale, or do they just limit it to the United States, or because it's morality and offense sensitivity, to borrow from my good friend, the guy that does Bloom County, Berkeley Breathed. He used to talk about that back in the day with Jesse Helms and Jesse Jackson jokes. Offense sensitivity. How do we counter that on a culture, not a culture to culture basis, but a country to country basis? Can't. So there's got to be a better.
That country needs to decide what's let in my opinion. But I'm not looking. I don't have the wide and vast experience that you have with this in tech versions, but and game versions. I mean, I think we have a little bit more control, I would think,
in the States. But the other thing
in
I
the
think
States,
about 1.0.A or 1.0A, whatever. It's the stuff that's done is done. You don't have to do anything.
Yeah, they're not saying that you have to pull it.
Yeah. You can't do 1.0A going forward. Like that's
right. So that material is still going to be there that they may object to at this point.
Right. But it's still there.
Now.
Yeah. And there's nothing they can do about it. And they acknowledge that.
Yeah. Assuming they don't decide, ultimately we're going to make you pull it. They could come back and decide to do that.
Yeah, so. That would be, that's an interesting one, because I like that they're sunsetting 1.0A, but they're not, so you can't use it going forward. But they're not pulling anything from the past.
Right,
so.
but the previous version that leaked out, it looked like they would do both. So I mean, that was my interpretation of it. Maybe I'm wrong.
Which raised the question of how would you do that if you said this is in perpetuity? So yeah.
Right. Yeah. Now they're claiming, well, that's a different legal term than what was meant.
Well, because an actual attorney must have showed up a little bit later and said, no, wait.
Well, apparently
sent them an email saying, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Your in-house counsel said one thing, other people have
another. Well, yeah, that's interesting as well, because I've been following some of the different lawyers popping up on the YouTube sites, and they all have different interpretations of what this thing could actually do. So, that's a good question in and of itself.
Well, there have also been a number of interviews with the people that actually drafted it. And what their intent was. There's a couple of them out there that are pretty easy to find. But yeah, I think the real question is coming back to the core of this to your comment earlier, James, is the genie so far out of the bottle that they may get the players back, but they're not going to get the content creators back, because they've already been, okay, you've shown your hand, we don't trust you. And until
the ship has sailed, I believe, on that one.
In my opinion, as long as people like Cynthia Williams and this Chris Cal person are in leadership and are not talking to the community in a way that they understand it. From what I think,
they don't understand the tabletop community in and of itself.
Well, there was a quote
to look at Magic and say, card game and compare it to Dungeons and Dragons as well is a whole different ball game. These are those are different markets. I mean, some of them, there's some overlap, obviously, but
clearly,
But I almost like when Magic hit, I never went and got involved in it, because I was like, oh, you're killing my tabletop. So there's not everybody that went along with that, and there won't be everybody that's going along with this VTT thing. But at the same time, if you left it alone, all these streams are out there for you. So why make everybody mad?
Yeah.
Well, and they clearly did, which is why they started to try to roll that back before
Yeah.
they. Yeah.
Well, I think people have already pretty much are boycotting them, from what I'm seeing on the internet. So, the movie that they've got coming out,
Movies
I
March
don't
30. Well,
I
movies
don't
March
expect
31st.
that it is going to do well. It'll be interesting to see how Hasbro stock goes after the movie comes out.
Well, that's kind of what I'm paying attention to, because it comes
Yeah.
out on March 31st, and
Yeah.
they already did their financial returns for the last quarter, I believe, and so now there are all these people that are dropping their D&D Beyond. Now, I've got an annual subscription, so even if I drop it,
Mhm.
it's
Yeah, that's what I understand. It's already paid for.
It's already paid for, so they already counted that revenue. But it's one of those things though where if their objective is to get to $1 billion, whether I honestly am not sure if that's top line or bottom line. I want to say it's bottom line. They have just made that much more difficult, and I think what that'll do is make it difficult for those executives that we talked about. And from what I understand, the new president of Hasbro came from Wizard of the Coasts.
But he's is that the guy with the Microsoft background too, though?
No, Cynthia Williams is the one that came from Xbox.
But there's another guy.
Okay.
One of the top leaders.
Got it.
What's his last name? Cox or something like that?
Maybe. I should be better versed with it.
Yeah. So I think what passes in the video game world, I don't think necessarily translates well to the tabletop game thing. And these guys, from what I understand, are not gamers. So I mean, they've not been through the tabletop trenches, so to speak.
Well, and the only
have an understanding of what the passion level is here.
Well, the only reason the virtual tabletop to me is viable is because of the pandemic.
Right. I mean, I went to
really
it then.
Fired it up. Yeah.
That's the only reason I tried it was because of the pandemic. Otherwise, I'm meeting at somebody's house or at the game store to play.
Now, let me tell you how I plan to use it going forward. If I can ever get James to move closer to Charlotte, which will never happen, so I'll have to continue to use it virtually. But when I play with people, I have a 40-inch monitor that I put in a case that will become my map, and I will use a virtual tabletop to run my maps. But I don't need augmented reality, and I don't need an Unreal Engine. Yeah. And I am not going to put their minis on the map in a digital format. I want the minis on top of the board. That's how I built it.
Yeah.
So that you can move the mini around and have that still tactile community experience that you just don't get in video gaming.
Right.
And I think the other reason that they think it's so important is because they feel like there's a shortage of DMs. They've gotten so popular with things like Stranger Things, but they don't have enough people that are willing to be DMs, which is weird because I see a lot of people wanting to DM things and people are just not like, yeah, sure, because it's still about community.
I just don't know if they're finding the right places to find the people to run stuff. So I don't know, that's a whole different problem, but I have seen that information go out that there was a lack of them. So for me, I mean, it's been more about finding the players that have the time to play something rather than the other way around. Yeah, because real life just seems to get in the way. I think we should shut real life down.
So
there you go.
And I'm notorious for taking us off topic. I'm sorry about that. But as we kind of zero back in on how this impacts you, Christina. Yeah. So is it safe to say that regardless, even if the 1.2 comes and settles in such a way that would be easier for you, is there a way back for you, I guess is my question.
I don't think so. At this moment in time. So my plans moving forward, I've already always supported Savage Worlds anyway. So I'll be doing their new Suede stuff. Moving Rogue Mage, which is the game based on local author Faith Hunter's series that we did Mutants and Masterminds. So I'm going to port that over into Suede. I'm waiting to see what Mutants and Masterminds decides about their own system to continue supporting them or not. Castles and Crusades, because they're scrubbing their stuff of all the SRD, OGL. That'll be something I support. And then otherwise, it's kind of a wait and see. But I've always been the type of person that plays other games. I'm not, just a strictly D&D person. So this is there are other options out there. It's just a matter of finding them. Obviously, I'm sure for people who produce 5e, that's a larger market than some of these other games. But for me, I just want to stay in the business and produce and give, like, one of my students, the recent PDF I released is one of my former students from Winthrop that we did an RPG writing class for.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw that. Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah, so he and I are teaming up to do some things together this year. I just want to give some opportunities to some writers. I reached out to the art department, the guy that I know at Winthrop, and he sent me the name of a student that he recommends. So I'm trying to get her some, some actual paid publication experience in art and graphics,
Right.
things like that. So it's kind of, for me, it's kind of like I would like to pay it forward through these other people and build up the next generations of gamers and game writers, creators. So yeah, whatever, if that means, producing small stuff and for a smaller publication, I just want to get things out there. I don't want to stop that creative flow. That's the important aspect to me.
So is this just kind of a marginal thing then in some ways? There's this huge tempest going on, but in some ways it's a tsunami that's happening half a world away.
It depends on how invested, I guess, you are in the 5e, which I'm not super invested in 5e.
Right.
It was the stuff before Pathfinder 1 that I was interested in.
Right.
And Castles and Crusade is currently under the 1.0a. So things like that are of importance to me. It's not the 5 or whatever, this one D&D they're moving forward to. I'm not their customer base in that return, for that. But I do want to continue publishing. So I'll look at other options. The biggest fear that I had was that they were just shutting it down pretty quickly and nobody would have enough time, to get their materials out that they already had. So I would like to see if they continue moving forward, just give us a deadline of the end of the year to finish out this license. And then from there on, because they're not putting this game out until next year, right?
It's
Right.
supposed to launch in 2024. So that's really when they should.
So why not say, hey,
impose
as
the
of
license.
January 2024, you can't produce anything further. And that would help people get out. But I know that's going to give them time to find other options like myself anyway.
Mhm.
'Cause
Well, and there's
yeah.
also the legal battles to come because that from what I understand anyway, and I can't say this was absolute certainty because there's so much information and misinformation out there, but it sounds like there are a group of publishers with the financial wherewithal that are willing to go to court over this.
I could see that happening. Yeah, I really could.
I don't know if that's-
I'm just a tiny fish in this pond, but I know a lot of the
Yeah.
people that play in the bigger lakes and ponds and stuff. So.
Well, I'm sure that there's some lawyer out there that's thinking, class action.
Yeah. Well, then the guy that created Necromancer Games, Clark Peterson, is a lawyer, so it's kind of interesting to see what he thinks about all that.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I hope it doesn't come to that because at the end of the day, it's just from my perspective, it's a big distraction. I still love the game.
It is, yeah.
and
I hope people continue to play it. Now, I'm not against the boycott. People want to boycott something, that's their right, whatever.
So it was interesting.
I'm not impacted on that part.
So I was I've been doing sort of this informal survey as I've walked into I've been into a number of different game stores around the Carolinas in the last few weeks, traveling around, and I keep asking the same question:
Mhm.
Is are you hearing about the controversy? In all cases, I hear yes.
Mhm.
Is it impacting your sales? In all cases, I've heard no.
Okay.
People
Yeah,
are still buying magic cards. People are,
Mhm.
they're buying books and minis. Of course, minis,
Yeah.
are not tied back to this, but there is the people are still playing. Nobody's said I'm quitting the game.
Right. Yeah. Nobody's going to stop you from playing.
Well, it's like I even said. I mean, I already paid for the stuff. We're
Right.
we're almost 2 years into this campaign.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm not gonna say okay, we're gonna stop.
It would be super weird if you did, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Very much so.
so we're just going to keep trudging through. But I hope that Hasbro and all the powers that be are paying attention to this in a way that says, okay, let's be a little bit smarter about this.
Mhm.
And I honestly, I think what they need to do is I'm okay with them protecting their IP as it relates to things that they've created. Whether
Mhm.
it's unique to them, stories or what have you.
Mhm.
I'm okay with them developing their own VTT. I think they should just let it compete on its own merits.
Exactly.
Apple didn't say you can't make a phone.
Right. Mhm.
You know,
Oh, they tried.
Well, they
well,
they go by
didn't
other
Microsoft in the
ways.
past try to get everybody else to not have any other operating system?
Well, but
So,
the way that they did, but the way that they went about it was very smart in the sense that they focused on features that made it work really really well,
mhm.
that people just gravitated to it,
Yeah.
as opposed
Yeah.
to locking out the competition in such a way.
They
'Cause-
also had like plans where it shipped with the product too, though. So it kind of helped.
fair.
But yeah, but I think there's some of that mentality that's coming over, being ported over from Microsoft that doesn't necessarily work with the gaming business.
No.
Well, and right, and because part of this is, as Joe pointed out minutes ago, now you can't protect game rules.
No,
Like,
you can't.
game mechanisms are not like, it's great to say D20 is ours. Yeah, dodecahedrons are everywhere. There's nothing you can do about it, and we can use it however the hell we want. And
Exactly.
you roll above or below, you still can't do anything about it. So yeah.
Right. Yeah.
What did the guy from Shut Up and Sit Down tell us? That we've been using dice ever since man finally decided, hey, we can farm. What do we do with these hooves? I don't know. Let's throw them around and cast lots.
Yeah. There you go.
So yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. It's and on the one hand, it's nice to see D&D so relevant again, and we're not talking about we're not talking about satanic panic. We're talking about illegal panic.
Yes, exactly.
So,
I mean, I was playing at those times, so I remember that.
Yeah.
I wasn't allowed. I had to go sneak out to play D&D. So.
Yeah, well, my parents always said, well, at least I know where the kids are because they're at the table and they're not out getting drunk or doing drugs or whatever. So, yeah, that's how they defended it.
Well, let's just see how this plays out. Christina, we reserve the right to invite you back.
Oh, absolutely.
If it settles and we
Guess
hear
1.2.8.
Yeah, we'll just do that. We'll sort of see how this evolves, but we certainly appreciate you coming on and giving the perspective.
Yeah, thanks.
That you have, and
No
thanks for the reminder before we started that Mythicon is coming up soon in Asheville, North Carolina.
Yes, to definitely
The
have all
weekend
your
of May
local
11th, I
listeners
believe.
hit Asheville in March.
Yep. So if you're in the Asheville area, come mid-March. I want to say the March 10th, 11th, and 12th.
Yeah.
Mythicon will be up there. We'll double check the dates and talk
Yeah, I
about
think
it. But
that's
we have a
correct.
couple of
That's
times
correct.
before we get back. And so James, I know we just got a little bit of time left. I'd love to just sort of know what's been going on your table the past couple of weeks.
Going on over there? Yeah. Let's see here. So last couple of weeks, we've gone through. Let me go back here. We hit a couple of old favorites just as the new year was starting. Playing Quest for El Dorado, which is a super fun. I don't know. I want to say 5 to 7 years old. All of a sudden, we're doing this, and of course, this is a podcast. Nobody can see this, but my video feed here is doing the Max Headroom thing again for those of a certain age. The Quest for El Dorado is a Reiner Knizia's take on how to use deck building in a sort of movement game, sort of a race game, and always great to get that to the table. Targi, we had borrowed this from friends, I don't know, a year or so ago, and finally picked up our own copy. And are you familiar with Targi, Joe?
No, I'm not.
So it's this fascinating, you have these action cards that are laid out in a rectangle around cards that you can pick up in the middle. You have two or three figures, and you alternate placing on these cards so that you can never, place your figure directly across from the other player. And at the end of the placement, these will intersect the two lines, like your two players on the x-axis and then one player on the y-axis, and you pick up the whatever is there. Either it's resources or it's sort of an action or a set collection card that you need.
Nice.
And yeah, and it's funny because we played this. It's deceptively small. It's one of those little Cosmos boxes, for two players, and it looks like it should play in about 20 minutes. It's really about a 45 minutes to an hour game because there's just a lot of very, very simple mechanics, but a lot of great decisions that come out of it. And then we've been playing the Asia expansion for Wingspan the last couple of nights, and had friends over earlier today who were neighbors, were like, "Oh, we have Wingspan, got a year ago for Christmas," and tried to play it and couldn't figure out the rules exactly. I'm like, "Oh, you sweet summer children." So they'll be coming over, I think, probably sometime the next week or two for me to teach them how to play Wingspan, the basic fun, just straight up. So we've been playing Asia, but yeah. And it looks like you might have done as well.
Well, I was going to say, first of all, before I get into it, I have been honoring my commitment to log every game into BGG. So I have been doing that. So yeah, we started the week with Verdant. Still, we had it on the table, so we played it one more time before we put it away. We finally got Wingspan Asia out. We played it, and it was really interesting because I have yet to beat Dale in this game. I always think I have her. And she gets all these eggs or all this food on her cards and stuff. And if it wasn't for that, contiguous thing at the end with the little yin and yang markers, board? The duet board, I wouldn't even be close. I keep losing by like 2 points. It's becoming my version of Mariposa's, where she just can't win that. So, but we're enjoying that one.
Crushed me at it the other night by like 20 points. I'm like, what happened?
But this is what I got to tell you. Because I got the big box,
Oh, yeah.
So I opened up the big box finally, and I started thinking about how can I put all this in there. And I'm very pleased to announce that the components that I've already paid for, like from ShipShape Gamer, that gives me the nice wooden bird feeder and some of the other storage mechanisms, all of that stuff fits. You don't have to use necessarily the things that Stonemaier gives you to pack your stuff in there. And so I'm very pleased with that. I was afraid I was going to have to divest myself of all these lovely, bits and bobs that I've bought through the years. So that was good news. The other couple of games we finally got on the table, we got Forest of Pangaea out.
Yeah.
A little harder to learn than we thought. There's a lot going on in the game, but once we kind of got it, it began to move. It was just sort of we weren't sure if we were in love with the theme right away because of the way that it was taught. So that just took a little bit of a bit to get into it, but we found out it was a pretty good game. We like it. And then last night we finally got Basilica on the table. A 2-player game. It was kind of like a little bit of there's a little bit of Carcassonne in there.
Okay.
There because it's tile laying, but it's competitive and you can do some mean things and stuff. So, but we really like that. I think the playthrough, there's not a lot out there on how to play it. There's a really nice, I want to say he's a Polish influencer that that actually has a nice 17-minute video out of there that if you can get through that, and his accent is great, so you can get through it pretty easily and understand the game.
Well, it's from Portal Games, so it would make sense that you'd have a Polish influencer. Yeah.
And if you recall, this is the game where the podcasters rolling dice and taking names that are here in Charlotte. They had actually invited the designer to their home, and they came by the game store in Pineville and demoed the game there, play tested the game there. So that's kind of how I discovered Basilica. There is a copy still on sale at the store, I noticed yesterday. So
rush right out, y'all.
So anyway, that's going on. And then just a few other, I put some things in I've modified the Kickstarters I've backed to Kickstarters I've backed or I'm intrigued by, or just games that I've picked up. Because Kickstarter, I've learned, is not the only means. So I in the age of you shouldn't stay up late at night and then buy something based on an impulse.
Yes.
I was watching a YouTube channel as I was going to sleep about this. I'll have to find it. It was this German YouTuber talking about his top 20 games of 2022, and he dropped in Lands of Galzer.
Okay.
Which is a Snowdale Designs game. They are the publisher of the Merchants of Dale or the Dale of Merchants series. Anyway, it looks like a really super cool game that is a little bit adventure-y, but it's also worker placement kind of movement, and I think it will be a good way to get people who are not really into the TTRPGs to kind of get an experience that might lead them there. There's there, and it also has some story prompting through your iPad as an option. It's not required. And then just the few other things, because
and a lot of dice, it looks like.
Yeah, and because my passion for Vita Lacerda continues, I picked up Vinhos.
Vinhos, yes.
Vinhos.
I
I like saying
edition.
Vinhos.
Okay.
Vinhos. I'll learn to speak Portuguese one day. Then, of course, the Struggle of Empires, which is not a Vita Lacerda game, but it is also done by Eagle Griffin Games.
Cool.
But I was actually able to pick up a Kickstarter through the Game Steward. If you're ever looking for a Kickstarter edition after the Kickstarter is over, the Game Steward out of Reston, Virginia is a really cool site to go to. They're just not very fast.
That's fair.
So, and then because of our last conversation, you can see that I picked up something there that I've hidden away until February 14th.
Oh, that's fun.
So that'll be my so I'll leave the title off of that, but if you were listening to last time, you'll know.
Yes.
Last thing I would just point out is in D&D tabletop role-playing game news, because we haven't covered that enough this particular episode.
Oh.
No, I just want to call this out, and this will all be in the show notes. I've talked in the past about how I support DM Dave on Patreon. DM Dave has just been a prolific writer of 5e material and great monsters. In my last campaign, the Ghosts of Saltmarsh, as if it were set in Eberron, I was able to use a Cthulhu, and I got the Cthulhu stats directly from DM Dave.
Right.
And because I was trying to give my players sort of the greatest hits of role playing, and I thought you had to have a Cthulhu in there somewhere that was a true legit Cthulhu, not just a mind flayer. So got that from DM Dave. He produces a ton of content that's also like Foundry VTT ready, that kind of stuff. Anyway, with all the kerfuffle, he has changed the name from DM Dave to Henceforth Games. And he is doing a Kickstarter that will start in the spring that's a horror RPG, and it's going to be based on a different mechanic than 5e. It's not going to be the orc. I want to say it's like I had seen it at some point. It's probably in the notes. It's not showing up, but it's a different type of system. But he's taking some, people. There are a lot of people out there that like horror and gothic horror and things like that. It'll be his take on that. So something that'll be coming out in 2023. So if you're into that sort of thing, you might want to check it out.
Cool.
That's all I got.
That's all good.
So, anything from you?
No, that's that all. Yeah.
Okay.
Interesting conversation.
Interesting conversation. A little bit. Oh, you know what? We're still coming in under an hour. I can't believe we got into that under an hour. That's crazy. Well, as always, we appreciate and love the amazing Christina Stiles of Christina Style Presents.
Thank you, Christina.
For coming on and being our guest. We look forward to painting with you in the future, playing some games, seeing you at cons, and ultimately having you back on to talk to us and our slowly but growing audience. Thank you so much.
Yay. Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
And as usual, I'm Joe Mahaffey. I am not bored. I am board gaming.
And I'm James Engelhart, hoping that all of your tiebreakers break your way.
We'll be back in a couple of weeks with a new episode of Lay It on the Table. Thanks for listening.
See ya.
I got a new game. It's gonna be great. It's the latest craze of 1988. Got a couple of pencils and a drawing pad. It's gonna be gnarly. It's gonna be rad. It's Pictionary. Put your piece on the board. Pictionary. Now what was that word? Pictionary. All this sketch is absurd. Pictionary. I'm drawing a